Palestine, at least 21 people were killed on Monday after Israeli bombardments in the city of Gaza during the first day of Holy Month of Ramadan. The Argentine government announced the deployment of security forces to the city of Rosario amid a growing wave of violence perpetrated by criminal groups. In Bolivia, authorities in La Paz declared a state of emergency and red alert due to heavy flooding. Hello, welcome from the south. I'm Luis Alberto Matos. I'm from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, at least 21 people were killed after Israeli bombardments in the city of Gaza during the first day of the holy month of Ramadan. Medical sources in the besieged Palestinian enclave confirmed the killing of 21 citizens, mostly children and women, while dozens were wounded after the attack on a family residence in the Al Zaytun neighborhood in Gaza City. On the other hand, a bombardment on a house in Rafah claimed the lives of 3 citizens. According to local sources, during the last 24 hours, Israel perpetrated 7 massacres in the Gaza Strip, killing 67 people and wounding 106. Since the beginning of the genocide last October 7th, the occupation forces have killed 31,112 people and wounded more than 72,000. Palestinian citizens in the Gaza Strip welcomed the holy month of Ramadan amidst the ongoing Israeli genocide, famine, and displacements. The Palestinian government called on the countries of the world to put pressure on Israel and stop the ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people, with over 110,000 victims, including the dead, the wounded, the disappeared, and the detainees. Through a statement, the Palestinian Authority denounced that in 5-month operation, Tel Aviv has attacked more than 500 mosques, of which 220 have been demolished. In this sense, the government assured that the faithful would not be able to perform prayers during the holy month for Muslims. The statement blames the United States and the international community for the war of famine, genocide, and crimes against children and women perpetrated by Israel. In this context, Gazan citizens made decorations to mark the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan. In Rafah, devout Muslims created paper lanterns with leaves from books and theme drawing to decorate the streets and their homes. The celebration consists of a month of fasting, which for the parishioner community represents a period of reflection and prayers as a way of renewing faith and getting closer to God.
To decorate, we made paper lamps with leaf from books. Because of the war, we could no longer go to school, so we used the leaf of our books as decorations. We also got colors to make Ramadan drawings. Despite the war, we continue to decorate and try to be cheerful. We want the joy to continue among us. If we were at home, we would have bought new clothes, holiday sweets. We would have got more colors and more decorations. We went out and left everything in Gaza. I have no clothes, no dresses, no sweets, and no cakes. Everything stayed there in Gaza. We are here since early in the morning to prepare ourselves to receive Ramadan and Ramadan environments. Despite the war, we will continue. Before we decorated the house, and now we decorate the street. We want to be cheerful and give joy to displaced people and to the little children.
In the United States, citizens rallied in solidarity with Palestine before and during the Oscar ceremony. Hundreds of demonstrators greeted the artists with boos in recrimination to the holding of the 96th Hollywood Academy Awards, denouncing that while the award ceremony is taking place, the Israeli genocide in Palestine continues. In addition, some artists participated in the event, such as the winner for Best Original Song, Billie Eilish, and comedian Rami Youssef, wore red pins to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, as well as a lasting peace and justice for the Palestinian people.
What is that for?
At the Oscar ceremony in the United States, local and international artists showed their support for the Palestinian cause and demanded a permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
We're wearing these Artists for Ceasefire pins. We're calling for immediate...
Yeah, tell me about the pin.
Yeah, we're calling for immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza. We're calling for peace and justice, lasting justice for the people of Palestine. And I think it's a universal message of just let's stop killing kids. let's not be part of more war. No one's ever looked back at war and thought a bombing campaign was a good idea. And so to be surrounded by so many artists who are willing to lend their voice, the list is growing. A lot of people are going to be wearing these pins tonight. And it's because we want to kind of use where we're at to speak to people's hearts. You know, there's a lot of talking heads on the news. This is a space of talking hearts, and so we're trying to just kind of have that big beam to humanity.
Moreover, the winner of the Oscar in the category of Best International Film, the German Jonathan Glazer, expressed his solidarity with the victims of the Israeli occupation in Palestine.
Stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all are victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist?
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Argentina, the government of Javier Milei announced on Sunday that it was sending security forces to the city of Rosario amid a growing wave of violence perpetrated by drug gangs. The national government announced this Sunday the creation of a crisis committee and the dispatch of federal forces agents to the city. The announcement follows a request from the governor of Santa Fe, Maximiliano Puyaro. In the last week, the city went through an escalation of violence with the murder of 2 cab drivers, the shooting of a gas station attendant, and the homicide of a bus driver. In the midst of this scenario, transport unions announced a strike in the city for this Monday, and the main teachers' unions informed that there will be no classes due to the growing insecurity. In Argentina, also President Javier Milei reverses the decree to increase executive salaries. On Saturday, Milei informed that he will revoke the decree establishing the increase of his salary and that of hierarchical officials in the executive branch by almost 50%, appealing to his anti-caste discourse. The president blamed former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner for the measure. However, the salary increase he granted to himself and his cabinet was implemented through Decree 206/24. This regulation had been signed on February 28th by the President himself, together with the Chief of Staff, Nicolás Posse, and the Minister of Human Resources, Sandra Petobello. In the early morning of this Sunday, one of the main union forces in Panama, Sontrax, denounced the terrorist attack against the union's headquarters and the systematic persecution of its leaders. Sontrax accused the Canadian company First Quantum and the Panamanian government of conducting criminal proceedings against its leaders and organization, as well as the arbitrary closure of its bank accounts by the general manager of the savings bank. The entity also noted that the security team detected an intruder in their offices while they were holding an internal union meeting and urged the national government to protect and guarantee the end of union persecution. In the United States, a shooting at a private party in Jonesboro, Arkansas, left 3 people dead and several others injured. Police officials stated that multiple gunshots victims were found at the scene at around 5 a.m. Among them, 1 person was transported to the hospital by ambulance and 4 other people were transported to hospitals in personal vehicles. At this time, police are not yet aware of what led to the shooting, nor have they provided updates on the people who were taken to the hospital, as the investigation is still ongoing. In Bolivia, authorities in La Paz declared a state of emergency and red alert due to heavy flooding. The number of emergency events that have occurred in the municipality of La Paz and their severity have increased in the current rainy season. Residents of different neighborhoods of the capital are building gabions next to overflowing rivers to contain the floods and are waiting for what may happen in the coming hours. A meeting is scheduled for Monday between the governor of La Paz, Santos Quispe, and other authorities to define the tasks that will be promoted to intervene as quickly as possible and avoid further damage.
No podemos
We cannot cope with the disaster of the rains. The neighbors here have organized. The neighbors are building gabions to protect their homes. The asphalt is leaving us. We don't sleep in the night thinking that our houses are going to be gone.
Argentina's National Meteorological Service has issued a yellow warning for high temperatures in 8 provinces of the country. The meteorological agency reported that the east of Salta province, Formosa, northeast of Chaco, among other provinces, are in extremely hot temperatures, such as situation places vulnerable populations at risk, such as elderly adults, children, and patients with chronic illnesses. Therefore, the health ministry recommends increasing water intake, avoiding exposure to the sun, wearing light clothing, and staying in ventilated areas. In France, the rains, winds, and floods associated to Cyclone Monica have left 6 people missing and thousands without electricity. Guard department authorities say rescue workers are searching for the missing persons after 3 vehicles were swept away by the waters. Officials say the power outage is currently affecting 1,800 homes in the department of Drôme and Ardèche, areas which are experiencing winds of over 130 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, the meteorological agency has issued an orange alert to dozens of territories due to the risk of flooding. In Indonesia, the death toll from floods and landslides that have affected the region since last Thursday rose to 26. The National Disaster Response Agency reported that the storm also left 2 people missing, 2 injured, and more than 78,000 displaced in West Sumatra province. Rescue teams continue to work to assist affected residents in the region, with more than 850 houses damaged, 3 completely washed away, 23 bridges damaged, and 13 roads affected. In this regard, emergency teams have begun cleanup work in buildings that were completely flooded during the floods. In South Africa, weather services warns of scorching heat waves that will hit the large parts of the national territory. Emergency services in the central South African province of Gauteng issue a high-temperature warning that will affect some provinces where it is expected to reach a maximum of 37 degrees Celsius. In turn, the spokeswoman for the emergency services of the city of Tshwane, Lindela Mashigo, asked residents to be aware of the adverse effects that prolonged exposure to extreme heat can cause. Authorities urge residents to avoid direct exposure to the sun to prevent the risk of dehydration, heat stroke, or exhaustion. We have a short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on the screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Portugal, early predictions indicate that Democratic Alliance Party leads the polls, while the far-right Chega Party obtains a significant amount of votes in this Sunday's general elections. According to estimates, the Democratic Alliance Party would lead the elections with at least 29% of the votes and around 83 seats in the legislature. In second place is the Socialist Party with at least 25% of the votes and about 69 seats. The far-right Chega, which is expected to increase its number of deputies in the legislature from 14 to 40, has made a significant recovery. The polling stations opened this Sunday at 8 a.m. local time in order to welcome the approximately 10.8 million Portuguese citizens called for voting in order to elect the 230 deputies of the Republic's Assembly, who will elect the Prime Minister. In the Vatican City, Pope Francis urged Ukraine to engage in dialogue to reach a lasting solution to the ongoing conflict with Russia. In an interview, the Supreme Pontiff urged Kiev to initiate a suspension of hostilities in light of an accurate observation of the situation and with a view towards the well-being of the civilian population. He also called for a ceasefire and urged the assessment of negotiations to achieve a truce and an end to the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. On this point, referring to any war situation, he emphasized that dialogue is a way to achieve a fair and lasting peace with the support of international powers. The government of Italy warned that NATO sending troops to support Ukraine would represent the end of diplomacy. This was stated by the Italian Minister of Defense, Guido Crosetto, regarding the France and Poland statements about a possible sending of NATO troops to Ukraine. He claimed that these nations cannot speak on behalf of the multinational organization, which in his view has stayed out of the conflict. Crosetto considers that taking troops to Kiev would be a step towards a unidirectional aggression that would eliminate the path of diplomacy. From Poland, there is a report about the country's foreign minister saying that some North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries have already sent troops to Ukraine. Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski has been referenced saying that NATO soldiers are already in Ukraine, and he warmly thanked the ambassadors of the countries willing to take that risk. However, Polish President Andrzej Duda said that so far there has been no such declaration from his government, but he did not rule out the possibility of providing military assistance to the Ukrainian forces. NATO troops from France, Sweden, Finland, and Italy are conducting an amphibious joint operation in a fjord in northern Norway as part of NATO's Nordic Response Drill, the largest of its kind since 1988, which would run until March the 14th.
Very important. We have kind of a saying of to secure peace is to prepare for war, and I feel like that describes the situation very well.
In Nigeria, relatives of children abducted by criminal groups demand answers from authorities. The parents and other relatives denounced the provincial authorities' delay in investigating to find the children's whereabouts. The minors were extracted during the armed groups' raid at their school last Thursday. The local police assured they suspect irregular groups operating in the area are responsible for the kidnapping of children, and they carried out these kinds of actions to request ransom. The gunmen forced their way into the school premises in the Sokoto village of Gidan Bakuso in the country's northwest and started firing shots sporadically, waking and causing panic among the students, according to school officials. Senegal's presidential candidates kicked off their election campaigns after weeks of protests over President Macky Sall's decision to delay the process. The 19 candidates for the presidency of the African nation have a short deadline to gather supporters ahead of the election scheduled for March 24th. This happened after Senegal's Constitutional Council, which is the country's electoral body, rejected the 10-month postponement of the elections announced by President Macky Sall. This event triggered a series of violent protests which aroused the concern of the international community about the democratic stability of the nation. Members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations agreed to strongly promote economic cooperation. The agreement comes within the framework provided by the adoption of 14 initiatives proposed by Laos in its condition of pro tempore president of the Intergovernmental Organization, which focuses on the recovery and connection between the economies of the area, as well as on the creation of an inclusive and sustainable future. At the meeting, the ministers also discussed how to improve existing Asian agreements on trade of goods, on digital economy issues related to competition, among others. The adoption of this program took place during the 30th restricted meeting of Asian economic ministers held on March 8th and the 9th. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.